concept, what it says, you're not allowed doing me'onen and menachesh, which means you're not allowed. Onen means to divine things, menachesh means sorcery. So the Torah says we're not allowed doing these things. So what are they? So the Shulchan Aruch brings a few examples of what it means. It says, Et ploni yafeh, it says, this time is good for doing this thing. So that's this form of divining or sorcery. It says in the Pasuk, Tamim tiyeh, you should be pure with Hashem. So therefore, when someone says this time is good for something specific, or this time is not good, so why is that a problem? So the answer is you're giving power to this negative time. And all this is a blemish of a person's covenant with Hashem, that through that, the negative time overpowers, so to speak, which basically means in a person's intentions, he has the power that something should get stronger that's not good. Okay, maybe there is such a thing, you could say. But by me thinking of it and making it into something that actually gives it a power to be a negative time. So what are you supposed to do? So right afterwards, the pasuk says you should be pure with Hashem, which is the opposite of me'onen, of divining. And that's the idea of fixing your covenant with Hashem. That's what tamim means, because it says hitalech lefanai ve'tamim. That through being tamimus, a lot of people are going to think, oh, he's tamim, maybe he's naive, maybe he's dumb. Actually, it's a very great intelligence to be tamim, because through a person being wholesome, he actually nullifies the negative time that would exist otherwise, which is the idea of the divination that a person does. So it says, Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha, God, Hashem, your God. This represents the world to come. It says Hashem Elokim, which is the world to come. That over there, in the world to come, there's no negative time, because the world to come is beyond space and beyond midos, emotions, and everything is only good. And there's over there's no such thing as an etra, there's no such thing as a negative time at all. And this is through a person reconnecting himself in the covenant. Hashem made a covenant with the Jewish people. The covenant says is that he is going to bring the Shekhinah upon us, and we must keep our part. The simple meaning is literally the bris milah, but on a deeper level, there's different levels. There's the level of the heart, the level of the speech, and the level of the mind, that they're connected in the right way. So it's a constant thing to keep up, and that's our side of the thing. And one of the principles that the whole thing works based off of is because we're calling it tamim. That if a person has this quality, characteristic of tamimus, which means wholesomeness, that is the protection for the whole thing. When you do that, your mind gets elevated, which is your das, which is the world to come, as it's brought down, and then you fix your covenant, and then the negative time gets nullified. Okay, and then you get the world to come, which is all good, that you live in that level over here that's beyond time. Okay, this is what it says from the otot, from the wonders of heaven. Al techatu, don't be afraid, because the nations will be afraid of these things. The Jewish people, we guard the covenant. We don't have to be worried about those things, which show on times and on this time's good for this time's good for that. The negative time gets nullified from a person's approach in his wholesomeness, which is the guarding of the covenant, and that's the world to come. Okay, we're going to continue on this topic. Okay, the little questions. Someone asked me if I believed in God. Yes, that's the whole point of this thing. Okay, we're continue. We're learning, and according to the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch says that the Jewish people are not allowed doing any form of divination and any form of magic. Okay, we're discussing these things now. What those things mean, we're going to go into, and it's basically the whole aspect of our faith is based off of this. Okay, now One thing that we're not allowed to do in the Shulchan Aruch says, we don't ask in the heavens. We don't look at the constellations and look to the future. Okay, now you're allowed to look to it to understand personality and these kind of things. But if you want to know future things from looking in the stars, we don't do such a thing. What's wrong with that? Doesn't it show? Doesn't things come through that? So we're going to see exactly what the issue is, okay? It says in some of our books, okay, that there exists a level of prophecy now. Okay, what does that mean? It means someone who is a true leader, he has a different spirit. Because when someone is a true leader, he receives a certain level of a prophecy. When you connect to a true leader, then you start getting some of that nevuah, some of that spirit. Okay, now, through doing that, what happens is it fixes a person's imagination in their mind. And then you get to clear emunah, you get clear faith on what the truth is. And all the things that are not true, the way you understand them in your own mind, which a person believes the world to be certain things and certain rules and certain ways. Okay, so when a person fixes this by receiving this spirit from someone who's a true leader, not just a true leader, but someone who's connected to holiness in the true way, so it fixes your imagination. And then all of your beliefs that are not true go away. And this is the concept called Zuhamat Nachash, which basically in Hebrew means the Zuhama means the negativity and filth of the snake. So Adam was in Garden of Eden, and when they ate from the tree, the good and bad got mixed inside of them. Okay, and part of that good and bad is very, in our generation, it's not so clear what's what. Everyone thinks this is good, that's good. So now we're going to see this idea of a person has a lot of negative beliefs on how things work. What do you mean negative? It means that they're not true. What you think is true is not the reality. Okay, so this is the idea of people that do divinations and do forms of magic. Okay, through the emunah that you get, the faith that you get that becomes clear, you get kindness. And this is the idea called Chidesh Olam, which means the world is going to be renewed. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. And the Chidesh represents the land of Israel, which is the idea of God's divine providence. As it says, Hashem's eyes are on it, always. Because then the world gets run through God's divine providence and the wonders of the land of Israel. Because the main idea of the land of Israel represents, it says in the Pasuk, Rashi brings it on the first verse of the Torah, Koch ma'asav v'gid lamo, the power of his actions, he told his nation. As it says in the first Rashi, Lo hayat tzarich latchil, we didn't have to start the Torah with a Chodesh Elechem, meaning the Torah should have started with the first commandment, that we have idea called the first of months, and there's certain obligations that we have on the first of the month. But it should have started with that, but they said no. And it explains over there. Okay, now what does this mean for us? It means the following. The Jewish people are a holy nation, and we live above nature. And what does that mean? It means the way God conducts the world is that there's God above everything. And over every nation and every country, he appointed a minister, that through that minister, the things that the country receives goes to that minister. Okay, this works for every country except for the Holy Land of Israel. And therefore, okay, the land of Israel goes through God's divine providence alone. And therefore, only the Jewish people, it says about us that we are commanded not to go after the signs of the heavens, and we're not supposed to do divination and magic. as it says in the verse, "Mi'otot hashamayim al techatu, ki yechatu agoy mehema." Because the nations are doing these things. They are dependent upon each other. What does that mean? When the Jewish people don't look into these things, these lies and these dimyonos, which basically means imaginations of the divinations, they look at, oh, this star here, this thing, that. So when we don't look at it, we are subduing the zuhama of the nachash, the filth of the snake, and we are coming to Amunah, to true faith. Because these imaginations of lies, of the people that do divinations, it comes from the filth of the snake. And when we distance ourselves from these things and don't look to get answers or understand the future for these things, we do not do that. We believe in Hashem alone, and through that we get to Amunah, the true faith. And when you get to the true faith, you get to what's called Chidush Olam, that you start living in a higher level of divine prophecy and divine hashgacha, which basically means God is this divine providence around you, which is the land of Israel represents that in general. And therefore, their conduct is through hashgacha alone, is through only God's divine providence, which is the idea called wonders. And that's higher than the nature of the heavens. So therefore, we don't even have to look at all in what's happening in the heavens, because we only go through God's divine providence. So therefore, this itself, we distance ourselves from this. Therefore, we don't have to be afraid of it. Why? Because the goyim, the nations, will be afraid of it. Because they have to be afraid of it. Why? Because they are conducted through nature, because they don't have the full level of divine providence. Because the zuhama, the filth of the snake, is imbued inside of the nations. Because it says, we have the verse, it says, to the diviners and the magicians, we will not listen. But they will, the nations will listen, because there's no amunah in God himself, no faith in God himself. And therefore, they do not get the land of Israel, which is the idea of divine providence, which is the idea of Chidush Olam, renewal of the world, because they cannot get to this only through pure faith in Hashem. So since they don't get this level called Hashgacha, so therefore they're only going according to nature, therefore they have to be afraid of the things in the heavens. And therefore, they have to go and check with this diviner and that person, because they don't have true Amunah. Okay, we're going to pause it here.